I think you make a very valid point that the whole revenue model of the media industry is flawed, and we are still, living in the old paradigm, and that needs to change. But the fundamental question that exercises all journalists is: do I have the freedom to write what I want, to show what I want? And there is some concern that the broadcast bill, which is targeting the YouTubers and the influencers. So how would you, in that context, how would you describe the media landscape in the country today?
Well, even without the broadcast bill for the last 10 years, every journalist had a censor in his head. So you actually don't need the broadcast bill to really intimidate anybody. If intimidation is the professed objective, then there are enough instrumentalities which are available to you or to the government to precisely to achieve that objective. In the states, there is no broadcast bill, but in the states and in the districts, the manner in which your colleagues have to grapple with intimidation on a day-to-day basis from at times very petty officials of the government is the reality that we live in. And unfortunately, in the past 70 years of India's democratic experiment, we've not really made a transition from the My Baap Sarkar to a belief in a participatory form of democracy. Right? You go down to any district of this country, the deputy commissioner is the lord and master of everything that he surveys. There would be a very courageous journalist who would challenge the diktats of that lord and master if he has to live in that district. So I think, there has to be a fundamental change in our disposition. And this is not unique to India alone. If you look around India, right, if you look especially at South Asia, there seems to be something intrinsically feudal in our DNA. And that manifests itself in various ways. Look at Pakistan. Sending prime ministers to jail is a national pastime out there. You look at what's been happening in some other parts of the neighborhood. So I think fundamentally, maybe because the democratic experiment, if you measure it in terms of the relativity of time, is still very nascent. We have not really matured in our minds to a democratic disposition. And therefore, when you add on layers and layers of regulation, you actually compound that feeling of intimidation, or you double the censors that every journalist would install in his head. And it is not limited to journalists. I write a column, I write 3 columns a month. Am I as, I won't use the word reckless, or am I as carefree as I was 10 years ago? The honest answer is no. Not because I fear the government or because I fear any particular person, but when you create a climate whereby everything which is critical is going to land up in some court of law through a defamation matter in some corner of India, it does sort of have a chilling effect on free speech. It's not that you will not come out innocent at the end of the day, but let's not forget, in India, the process is the punishment. The punishment is not the punishment. The process is the punishment. So, therefore, under those circumstances, yes, that oppressive feeling of the big brother watching you, and by extension, forces which are inherently or intrinsically illiberal, having the upper hand in the larger public discourse, thereby being able to stifle a contra opinion or a contrary opinion is the product of a culture that we have created. I'll tell you a very interesting story. So when I became Minister for Information and Broadcasting, I asked Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. And of course, we were at the receiving end of probably the most ghastly, irresponsible, and if I can say, malicious media coverage at that particular point in time. And so I asked him, I said, Prime Minister, what should be our approach to the media? And he said that it should be an essay in persuasion and not an essay in coercion. And he added that if you were to put yourself in the shoes of the opposition, and if, let us suppose, coercion becomes the order of the day, how is it that you would feel? So and I have reflected on this statement at length over the past 10 years. And I come to only one conclusion, that you need to have an inherently democratic temperament to be able to, notwithstanding what you are being subjected to in terms of an all-out assault, at times of unverified and, as I said, malicious allegations, a campaign of calumny and innuendo. And still, if you had the modicum to maintain that equilibrium, I think somewhere very intrinsically, Dr. Manmohan Singh had imbibed the basic fundamentals of what running a democratic state is all about.
I think you seem to be saying that despite 77 years of independence, we are still not fully democratic in our thinking, in our behavior.
And as I said, that this is not something unique to us. If you look around South Asia, you will see the same kind of manifestations. And I've reflected on this also, and I think maybe because the democratic experiment is still a nascent experiment if you measure it on the expanse of relativity, that is why we are where we are.